and then their mass and charge describes the physical properties of a molecule. Turbles Celbor here with more Fortnite Battle Royale on Nintendo Switch. In this case, I'm playing Fortnite Arena once again because these are surprisingly popular. I was shocked at the popularity. So I'm playing in the solo queue on Arena, which is Fortnite's ranked version, and I am just playing on the good old Nintendo Switch HAC 001. So this is not a Nintendo Switch Lite. A Nintendo Switch Lite cannot get the kind of resolution that this is getting. So, yep, just playing again. In the interest of making these videos somewhat more interesting to watch, I've been trying to select a series of topics to discuss while playing, especially as I'm playing in the Contender League and just slowly grinding my way up. So I've decided to discuss an area that I'm technically an expert in. So I don't know if I've mentioned this on the channel yet, but I'm technically a scientist, apparently. By all standard definitions, I am a scientist, so I am going to discuss the thing that I use in my day-to-day life, and that is a liquid chromatograph tandem mass spectrometer. So we're going to discuss that. So if you are a scientist, or you are a medical laboratory scientist in training, or you're writing a paper on medical laboratory science instrumentation, and you've come across the concept of HPLC, also known as high performance liquid chromatography, this is the video for you. I don't know how you got linked here, because I am just gonna verbally explain a platform that I use constantly and is generally considered to be fairly complex. So I use a liquid chromatograph tandem mass spectrometer, which is basically sometimes they call it triple quad mass spectrometry. Other people call it like high performance liquid chromatography. The key element here is that a tandem mass spectrometer, and specifically the high performance liquid chromatography portion, is actually two separate methodologies for testing that have been combined into one. So it's an organic chemistry thing. So basically, and I'm going to just go ahead and move forward, a liquid chromatograph is a device which has some kind of means of separation of chemicals. In most cases, it's a specially designed object known as a column that separates chemicals based on their chemical formula and their chemical properties, right? So high-performance liquid chromatography basically refers to the idea that you're running liquid through a column and it generates a graph that is known as a chromatograph. I don't know why it's called a chromatograph because there's no colors involved, and like chroma implies that there's color. Oh my god, my puppy sat down next to me because she's good. You're a good girl. Oh, so good. So anyway, we're going to discuss liquid chromatography tandem mass spectrometry here in this ranked match of Fortnite. I mean, just for the heck of it. So basically, when you have a chromatograph, what you're getting is you have some kind of detector that's detecting, in most cases, ions or compounds hitting said detector over a period of time, okay? So what it does is it generates a histogram-like graph that forms into what is called a chromatograph, but essentially looks like a series of peaks, right? So when I was doing my medical laboratory science degree, which is a real degree you can get. So if you're in high school and you want a career to go into and you're not interested in medicine for the sake of nursing, or you're maybe more technically minded than most nurses, highly, highly recommend medical laboratory science. There's a giant shortage, and Americans don't even know what the heck it is, so it's great. But basically, when I was doing my medical laboratory science degree, we mentioned tandem mass spectrometry very briefly, even though virtually every medical test that exists, at least on the chemistry side, you're going to run into this thing where they're like, oh yeah, and the gold standard method, like the best one, is tandem mass spectrometry, and they never mention what the heck it is. So basically what you have is you have two components. You have two instruments, right? You have a liquid chromatograph, which is pumping liquid through a device known as a column that separates things based on their chemical structure. And then you have a device that detects ions that come into it over time, and this is the mass spectrometer. So because I'm just totally nuts and decided to talk about my area of expertise on a Fortnite video, let's discuss these two things. So specifically, after the liquid chromatograph, you have a device known as a mass spectrometer. In this case, I'm going to describe a tandem mass spectrometer. There are other types of mass spectrometers. A mass spectrometer is a instrument / sensor analyzing device that looks at ions and then counts them, which sounds really simple, but think about it. So if you're trying to measure some very complex chemical compound, you've decided that you're going to measure it based on its, so you've already separated it based on its chemistry, and then you're counting it based on its physical properties. So a mass spectrometer splits out ions based on their weight and charge, which, if you remember from physical chemistry, and I'm assuming anybody watching this who is really, really, really wanting to hear somebody drunkenly describe anything related to science, the idea of a molecule, right? Molecules are essentially defined by their chemical interactions, which is represented by the liquid chromatograph, right? And then their mass and charge describes the physical properties of a molecule. So essentially what you've done at that point is you have split out a molecule based entirely on its core physical properties. So a tandem mass spectrometer combined with a liquid chromatograph is an analyzing device that can essentially identify molecules with almost perfect accuracy. So they're typically used in clinical applications for things like drug confirmation. So if you are in trouble for, like, say, doing heroin, oh boy, they're going to use they should use one of those. You're going to hear a lot of things online about how immunoassay is really inaccurate for identifying drugs, and it is. Most drugs are much smaller than a typical immunoassay's detection molecule, which is usually a modified IgG. But in this case, a tandem mass spectrometer can identify things down to about 150 Dalton, which covers the majority of drugs that people take on the street. So that said, how do any of these devices work? So I'm going to go into detail because I'm a nutty person and I'm doing a video like this. So this is just a weird content. If you don't like this content, don't like and subscribe. But if you do like this content, please like and subscribe. Actually, just like and subscribe anyway, because I want more subscribers, damn it. So basically, a liquid chromatograph, the way it works, right, is you have liquid pumping through a column. So the column is essentially a long tube with some type of chemistry, be that like a highly nonpolar chemistry or a highly polar chemistry that latches on to molecules, right? And then you have liquid, you have some kind of liquid running through. Usually, in liquid chromatography, tandem mass spectrometry, you have two different liquids, usually a highly organic liquid, which is known as your organic phase, or your organic mobile phase, and then you have a aqueous or highly polar phase running through it as well, and then you change the proportion of your polar and nonpolar solvent. So essentially, a column is referred to as the stationary phase, so it doesn't move, and the liquid you're pumping through is referred to as the mobile phase, so it's moving, right? So what you do in a liquid chromatograph is you inject your sample or your molecule of interest into the liquid chromatograph, and it is suspended in mobile phase, at which point it is pumped through until it reaches the through a line until it reaches the column, right? So your column is your stationary phase. I'm just going to look at the storm front right here, and then in 2 minutes I'm going to move forward. So basically, the column is the stationary phase. Now, in my line of work, particularly because I'm working with a lot of really basic drugs, I actually use what's called a reverse phase liquid chromatograph. So my mobile phase is non-polar, so it's primarily water, or an aqueous mobile phase. And then I use a non-polar column, which is my non-polar stationary phase, right? So you have molecules have, if you remember organic chemistry, molecules that have a lot of uncharged groups in them, like long hydrocarbon chains, those are non-polar molecules. So they don't have a lot of electrostatic charge. Their electronegativity in different regions is very, very low. So then what you're going to do is when you inject your sample of interest, right, the column being highly nonpolar and your mobile phase being very polar, the first thing that happens is your organic molecules latch onto the column, get stuck, right? So then in a lot of clinical applications anyway, your, incoming, just a moment. I don't think they saw me. Hooray. Wow, they definitely did not see me. I'm just gonna march around the outside, it'll be fine. Anyway, so your highly non-polar molecule, right? So let's say you're looking at something like carboxy THC, which is one of the primary metabolites of THC. So somebody smokes a bunch of weed, and you can tell it's when I say weed that I'm white, because nobody but white people call marijuana weed. So somebody smokes a bunch of weed, right? And that goes into their system, and it gets metabolized. So the tetrahydrocannabinol is the primary. Oh shoot! Somebody knows I'm here. Let's move. Let's move out. Get out of the way. So tetrahydrocannabinol is the. Make sure I don't get caught. Yeah, they're probably up there. Anyway, tetrahydrocannabinol is the primary psychoactive portion of marijuana. So it's the chemical that gets you high in marijuana, right? So the primary metabolite, about 25% of it, is converted in the urine into carboxy THC, which is THC with a carboxylic acid group snapped onto it. Carboxylic acid, carboxy, shoot. Something like that. The carboxy THC is a carboxy group. So C. Ooh, who's shooting at me? There they are. Let's get some height. Oh no. And I'm down. Darn it. That was going to be a good explanation of, man, it's hard to describe complex scientific concepts while also playing Fortnite. So we'll try again. But I hope that content was mildly interesting.